All right, so welcome to the first episode of this new series that Andre and I are creating, where we are going to be talking about agentic AI in DevOps. So my name is Fernando,
Andre is here.
and in this session we are going to basically set the stage to why we are doing this, what we are going to be talking about in the coming sessions, and yeah, Andre.
Yes, so the AI was all over the place, and Fernando and I both have extensive experience working as AWS consultants, building infrastructure as code, immutable infrastructure, doing a lot of Terraform, being AWS experts, and we actually trying to figure out how the whole AI thing is gonna affect our space where we are experts. It's a new tool available for us, and we are, as professionals, needs to be taking a closer look into what the tools are, what the capabilities are, and how the things are going to change. We're pretty sure that there are a lot of people out there trying to figure the same things out, because I think everyone is asking how everything is going to change. So with those series, we invite you to have a discussion about how things are changing, and what we bring to the table is years of experience, being the AWS consultants, working with infrastructure, building it for the customers of different sizes and different industries. But there is more to that. Would you share that, Fernando?
Yeah, for sure. So besides using AI on our day-to-day as consultants, like Andre mentioned, we thought, what if we actually start building an agentic AI solution that helps us with the things that we have to do, right? Because we feel the pain, like everyone else working on this. A lot of things that you need to deal when you are building a solution on AWS, in our case, right? Like incidents, or when you want to understand how something works, you're onboarding a team. So there is a lot of things that you need to do, as we realize, like, if we would have an agent here to help us and help our clients, this could be very beneficial. So we actually started building, and we have already clients using it in production. So we have an agent connected to a real AWS environment that is going to be part of the discussions we are going to have here. So it's not just about how to use Cursor or Claude Code. You might have seen these tutorials around, right? We are going to discuss these tools as well, but we are bringing to you, besides the AWS experience and the DevOps, like the consultant experience, how it is to actually build an AI agentic solution, right? Which is a different angle, right?
This is where we believe that we have a unique perspective. So we're bringing you the perspective of the practitioner who building the infrastructure, and you will hear AWS from us a lot, but that's just because of our professional deformation. I mean, we've been doing a lot of AWS, but like AI in general is cloud agnostic. It could do it the same way it could do any other cloud, like Oracle Cloud or what have you. So it's universally applicable. Just when you hear us saying AWS, substitute it with a cloud of your choice. And we should also mention that what agentic AI is, right? Like, because we're saying agentic AI, and we might be assuming that everyone understands what is that, but that's probably not the case for everyone. And that's why for this episode, we wanted to give you a little bit of digital archaeology about and just uncover of how the things came to be today, and the tools when they was released and what they are that you might be seeing on LinkedIn, Twitter, and other sessions, and also take an angle how they might be useful for the what you do today.
Yeah, I think like understanding this is indeed the key for the agentic thing, so you can understand as we kind of go throughout the timeline, right? So I think a basic thing is like if for me at least, if I would try to say like what is agentic AI compared to the AI we are used to, maybe ChatGPT that most people have touched and are familiar with, It's basically an agent can do something, right? So maybe this is the simplest way to think about it. ChatGPT, you can ask questions. Claude, you can ask questions. It's going to tell you something, but it can't actually do anything, right? It does a research, but it can't touch a system. It can make changes. While an agent, what constitutes an agent is the capability of taking actions, right? So maybe just to set a little bit of the tone of like, this is the idea. An agent can make changes and not just like reply with content, right?
Yes, and historically, this is exactly why a lot of people dismissed the AI as a useful tool in their occupation. And like us doing the infrastructure was the same, because when ChatGPT came out in November 2022, which is like 4 years ago, so it's been a while. Then you could send the query in and you can get the text out, but it wasn't useful. And in 2023, things started to happen around that, because this is like where the first use cases kind of start to came in, where you would have text in, text out. This is where it could be useful. And then you have the you should understand the chatbot that you're interacting with. The fact why it cannot take any action is because it's being hosted on the server somewhere out there. You're being presented with a web interface. So you type your question in the web interface, it goes to the server does the processing, which is called inference, and you getting back the answer. Then in 2023, text in, text out, obviously coding was very applicable thing that you could do, right? Because we're typing in text and then we're executing it. So here we could put in the query and get the code out, and the code is structured also. So it's very well understood in a way that it follows the rules. So that's why it's very easy to produce, for AI to produce the code, because it's structured and it follows the rules, and it's easy to verify that the output. And in 2023, we seen Cursor coming to the scene. So it was like one of the first I should say agentic, but it was like first AI infused IDEs or AI native IDEs that was like built to be integrated with AI. And Copilot. Do you want to talk about Copilot, Fernando?
Yeah, I think GitHub Copilot was, I think, one very common one around 2023. A lot of people tried to use it because we were using GitHub. So, but my experience, so I use, I think, basically all of the tools we are going to talk about. With Copilot, I remember back then, I had this aha moment when I was trying to create like some basic data for a test, and it kind of understood exactly what I was going to write before I put that. The structure, it even went online and did some research and gave me like a zip code that matched the address that I had. And that was like, wow, okay, so this is not very simple autocomplete, but it's a more, let's say, smarter one. But I still had a bit of this feeling of, this feels more like an autocomplete tool than actually something that creates like a code from an idea, right? And that was my experience with Copilot back then.
Yeah, I would say like the feeling of autocomplete, I think that's the era of 2023. That was like the general feeling there. That's like a very clever autocomplete. You could do stuff much faster. You could also like invoke a little bit of prompt, I believe, like inline. But
true.
The models were still like like the specifications we have today. So it was still like a lot of room for improvement, and that's why it felt a little bit slower. And when we've been doing the research, surprisingly, there probably will be more tools released during that time, but they haven't made it to our radar. And the only tools that did make it to our radar was Windsurf.
Yeah, in 2024, right? Apparently was quiet.
For some reason. It was quiet, but it was another thing about 2024. It was quiet, yes, but at the same time, I believe it was in 2024 when people started to come up with the idea of MCPs. right? It was Anthropic coming up with the
true.
idea of MCP.
Yeah.
And I believe that was in 2024, which might be wrong.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it was a year of maturing, right? Like there was a lot of research because you're gonna see in 2025, then a lot of things came out. So I think Cursor and Windsurf kind of set the tone to like, okay, this is kind of how the future of software development and like the whole tech industry is gonna start working, where you don't have an autocomplete, but you actually have an agent that can write the code for you, right? So you can plan what you want to do together with that agent. And then instead of you writing the code, which was what GitHub Copilot would still do, like I start writing the code, it kind of autocompletes, but I need to think about the logic and kind of structure the things. With Cursor and Windsurf 23, 2024, it kind of set the tone and things start to mature, so that in 2025, there was a explosion of new things come out, right? Like in that area.
We'll get to it. I did a quick query, and if you had to believe the Google AI overview, which you probably shouldn't, but if you had to believe it, November 25th was one of 2024. That was when Anthropic released the concept of MCP. And that's why I'm always confusing, because like it was in the end of 2024 and like it came in to the human consciousness and more like in 2025. So, but that was 2024, I think, was a year of exploration, since people were trying to think, how could we do more with this? It looks useful, that the models, it looks useful, how we can do more with this. And MCP was a first approach that people started to explore. And through MCP server, you would connect the external system to your model, and you could say and basically by in 2024, I believe both Anthropic and OpenAI released the desktop applications, and that was like the first step towards the agentic, because first, like when you do the chatbot in a web browser, it disconnected from everything. Now they have idea of connectors where you connect a lot of systems, which is very similar to MCP. So they have access to the more context, and we can talk more about context later. But in 2024, they were releasing those on desktop wrappers that will still be calling out the model on the server, but since they're running locally, they can do more because they have access to your system. Like when they're running in the browser, they have to break out from the browser isolation. That's why it's really hard to do anything. And browser is built to isolate all the internet radiation that is happening there and all the dangers of the internet.
Yeah, definitely true. As we start running, I think these IDEs were the first moment when indeed the AI has access to files on your machine. And then indeed with the desktop apps, now you can see, I think was earlier this year, right? Claude launched the co-work, which is now something for non-tech people, right? That works with files, spreadsheets, Word documents, and this stuff in your machine. So that's when you start bringing AI into an environment where it can actually do things, right? But this is basically, I think it set the tone with the IDEs, and then in 2025 we started seeing things like Claude Code, right, that came out in February as a beta thing, which was, I think back then, I don't know how it was for you, Andre. For me, I saw it, it was like, okay, it feels like another version of Cursor, but throughout the year, everyone started to try, me included, and then you start to see that it was more than that, right? So much that it became GA more like a middle of the year, around May. But it was interesting to see that indeed with that basis, that in 2025 we started having multiple launches, right? With Client. So you mentioned a tool called Client. That one I was not familiar with. Do you have any insights?
I haven't. Well, it's like similar to Claude Code, and it's been mentioned to me by many people. So it's like open source agentic tool that you can run locally. However, before I want to mention it, I want to just wrap up 2024. And if you look at 2024 from the perspective of people working like in DevOps industry, 2024 haven't brought much of the changes. I mean, you had chatbots that you could ask questions to troubleshoot. There was like attempts of AWS to plug in some AI into the web console, but it wasn't working very well at all. And another thing is like if you ask questions from the chatbot that doesn't have access to your context, the answer were like hit and miss. Time to time it would give you an idea of what it is, but in most cases will not tell you what the problem is because it has no idea what you got. So it will generalize or hallucinate or whatever. And so that's why it was still quite a bit of dismissal happening in that industry. It was we started to feel it in coding, but like when it came to so you could write your Terraform faster. That was useful, but there is always quite a lot of troubleshooting involved when it comes to the infrastructure. And that, I would say that probably is the most time-consuming activity, and there AI still wasn't useful much. But in 2025, it started to change rapidly. As Fernando mentioned, in February, we got Claude Code, and it was the client thing, and we also got Amazon Q CLI in the March of 2025, and I actually spent quite a bit of time with that thing because I was like, I'm still immersed into the AWS community builders and Slack and everything, and it was all over the place. So for me, it was easy to miss Claude Code, but it was very hard to miss Amazon Q CLI. So that was very interesting since what it allowed you was a program that you run in a terminal, and imagine you have your AWS credentials already set in that terminal. So when you run the program, it will inherit those credentials. It will have access to the account where you currently logged in. And then if you have a problem in there, in that account, you can ask Amazon Q CLI, say like, go troubleshoot it for me. And it will call AWS CLI or its own tools, and we should talk more about tools later, maybe next episode, because that one will be a little bit too long. But I think next episode we will go into context and the tools and everything.
Makes sense.
But basically, AWS CLI will calling the AWS CLI on your behalf, collecting the data, processing the data, and giving you hypotheses. It could even change things for you if you have permissions. So that was actually quite a big deal. And where it was immensely useful, it could process logs. So you could ask it to fetch logs and process it for you, like count the number of issues and so on and so on. Or like generate a report, like go check all the infrastructure, generate the report. There was like two big issues and with that, in my opinion. And one is that it had no idea what you have. So like as with any LLM, it has no idea about reality. It has all the knowledge stored when the model was created, but it needs to have context loaded so it's aware of what's going on. With QCLI, you ask the question, say like, my redshift is not fitting well. It's like, all right, let's see what kind of redshifts you have. And it will do it all the time. The Claude Code is technically a very similar product. So it's the same CLI application that's running, have access to your credentials, and can call tools on your behalf, like CLI tools. And this is why MCP concept is starting to fade in now, because those local agentic tools able to call CLI on your behalf and kind of impersonate you and achieve things comparing to like similar how you would do it.
Yeah, and I've seen also like with this whole idea of tools and skills for these agents replacing MCPs, also to make things more deterministic, right? Like, so you can call an API through a script, because before it was a challenge to make like a model write the exact command to kind of send like in a deterministic way, right? So you know it's always going to work. And then you had the MCP kind of doing the bridge between these two words. And then it came up with these ideas of skills, and then just tell the LLM to say like, hey, call this script. And the script is basically a piece of code that then now calls the API like we would do before. And then you know every time that's going to work, right? So I also started to see this, and the context thing, which we will go in more detail, but basically the fact that the AI before didn't have this context about what you're dealing with makes it hard, right? And I remember like as you were transitioning 24, 25, I had colleagues working with me using ChatGPT and like trying to figure out how to do things, and then you go into this loop because AI doesn't have an idea of what you're talking about, so it keeps giving you the same suggestion over and over again.
Yes.
But things improved a lot since then, right? But it was an interesting journey. Then the AWS came up with Kiro, right? I used it a little bit. I don't know how much did you use, Andre, like Kiro?
I used a lot of Kiro
Yeah,
when it came out.
I was more a cursor guy, so curious to hear your experience.
Yeah, so this cursor was always optimized for the speed, right? So of the processing, giving you code. Kiro was different. Like Kiro was very different. First of all, it came out, I believe, in July in public preview, and they were giving you access to Sonnet 4 free of charge, almost unlimited. That was a good deal.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's a good deal.
And another thing is that what they also had, they had like a specs. Someone told me, again, who was mentioning Klein to me, that Klein also had specs-driven development, so maybe Klein was like a little bit ahead of them, but they kind of did it in a very good way. So where you want to do something, you would fire up the Kiro and you want to build a feature. You would give a description of the feature, it will build a list of requirements for you. Out of that, it will build a design spec and then implementation specification. And you like spending quite a bit of time reviewing this. And I strongly believe this is like where the AI-based coding goes anyway, because you need to have those specifications to capture the intent. Otherwise, you're getting some weird stuff or random stuff if you haven't provided the proper specification. So Kiro was like really zeroed in on a spec-driven development. It could also do like a little bit of vibe coding, but the spec-driven development was its main feature. And it was also like it felt like it had like this enterprise-ish taste, because it would also heavily lean in the test-driven development. So it would write a lot of tests to validate what it's doing. And generally, the output of the code was much better comparing to your normal vibe coding or like your regular vibe coding, just because, first of all, it was building out of the specs, but also it was doing a lot of unit testing and like it would even write the integration tests. So it was very interesting. I spent like hours in Kiro really this last year.
Nice. Yeah, I tried. I remember indeed the difference in speed compared with Cursor was a big thing, because indeed for every change, right, it wanted to go through the spec loop. But I remember I liked a lot indeed this idea of the spec, so I tried to bring it into Cursor with the idea of planning, always creating a plan and a clear definition before writing any kind of code, and that helped a lot already. But it's not as, let's say, strict, right? Like as structured maybe as Kiro.
Yeah, exactly. And the planning mode is, I think maybe Kiro and Klein, they kind of inspired other tools. So the Claude Code got the planning tool, Cursor got the planning tool. And if you're doing the ID, if you're writing the code using AI, planning mode is probably the best place for you to start all the time, because you want to talk to the AI about what you are doing. So it has a plan, you can review the plan, and then it executes. Otherwise, you're just doing the Google version of like, I'm feeling lucky. Just putting something in the search box and like, I'm feeling lucky.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, true. True, yeah. So I think throughout the year, right, 2025, so we had then Claude Code coming up, then Kiro becoming more in November became GA, right? So I don't know how much traction now it has. I'm curious. And then Anti-Gravity, right, also came out in November as the IDE from Google. What I have seen for Anti-Gravity, like it also comes with the plan as a built-in part of the workflow. So it always does that. It also has some testing things for like if you're doing front-end development, it kind of opens a built-in browser, takes a screenshots. So it kind of try to self-fix things, even visual things. And Google pushed a lot with also similar idea like Keto, like, hey, you can use almost for free, illimited or unlimited. And a lot of people adopted it, right? But not in our field, I feel. I have seen a lot of non-technical
I've seen
people
a couple of people using anti-gravity, yes. But it's also Windsurf, basically. So they acquired the team of the Windsurf. And so Windsurf is still there, but they basically hired all the founders. Because it was like a deal. I think Windsurf wanted to sell to OpenAI, and then the deal fell through. And Google came in and just acquired the founders.
Okay.
So
so that's where the knowledge probably is coming from, all the thing. So I think I see still a lot on YouTube, like people talking about it, but I have seen most people that were doing AI automations with NA10, like other tooling, different niche, taking anti-gravity as their tool, the one that worked well for them.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that was nice, but for like engineering, I haven't seen as much.
Right.
And then in 2025, is there other thing for you that stood out besides the?
So we could also mention that basically any other SaaS tools that you might be using today, try to do an AI play, right? So there was quite a bit of going on with all the monitoring tools, trying to parse logs automatically. Sentry, for instance, trying to give you suggestions what the problem is. But I actually have an opinion about that. So I do think that most of those AI plays will fail, just because all of those tools are having only like a piece of the picture. Like for instance, your monitoring tool, better uptime that we use on many projects. It's receiving the alert, but like it has no idea. Like if you're not sending logs to the better uptime, they have no idea. So like they cannot do much with that, even like if they have the best AI out there. And like even if they have logs, they don't have other context like the source code. So in order for that to work, you really need to have everything. So you need to have source code, logs, metrics, ideally your Slack conversations, documentation for AI to work and make it magic to work, because the context is the king. If you don't have the context, then you will have hallucinations and AI trying to come up with something.
And it matches, I think, the reality of human engineers, right? Like if you join a team and an application crashes and you don't have any context, you will start guessing what could be the cause. While indeed, if you can look at the code, look at the infrastructure, the documentation, then and you get the person who built the thing and went through the whole journey knows, here's where we need to look, right? While if you don't have any context, then you start guessing around. And I think that has been my experience as well with these tools that try to give a suggestion based on the partial information, that it might give you some direction, but a lot of times it's just a guess, right? Like because they have zero idea of what's running in the background.
And if you summarize 2025, so 2025 was like a little bit of breakthrough year where there was a lot of stuff that is actually useful for our occupation. Like starting with the Amazon QCLI in March, I did multiple meetup sessions on that, and I've seen people using it. I used it myself quite a lot for the troubleshooting, and was immensely useful. If you haven't tried any kind of agentic AI locally, I would start there. But now it's called Kira Dev. So like if you are in Amazon land, it's maybe one of the ones that you can try. The Claude Code is all over the place, kind of the same thing. I mean, like they're very similar. They might be acting a little bit differently depending on the training and the system prompt and the tools available. But generally, like all those tools, like Open Code we haven't mentioned. So it's like very similar to Claude Code, but open source, released May last year, Clyde and so on. So all of them are kind of the same. that in most cases we'll be calling the same model. There is a perception between people that Claude Code might be working a little bit better with Anthropic models, and Anthropic models considered to be the best models out there right now. I'm not sure about that, but well, you make your own opinion. And other things that's kind of flying under the radar for some of the people is, like, for instance, using Cursor or Hero as IDE. You don't have to be a CLI tool, because those now can also call all the local tools, and they do call them. Like, for instance, when you're coding in Hero, you're writing in Python, it will be able to run your Python unit tests and see the output. It could also run the AWS CLI and go into your cloud. So that's kind of flying a little bit of under radar, because I could see a lot of people talking that this you need to have like CLI, that's like running terminal, and that's agentic. But those IDEs actually can do the same thing, and that's kind of general misconception that I observed quite a bit.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah, because so not realizing that in the chat window of Cursor, or they can also
they actually running the local tools all the time.
Yeah.
Like you're coding Python, it's running the unit tests there, but as well it could run AWS CLI the same way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I have seen indeed like people were running tests. Someone that was working with me, and he was copy and pasting like the output of the test into the chat. They said you can just tell the chat to run the tests until they work, right, and fix, so then it can see the output and everything. You don't need to keep copy and pasting. But it's I think a bit of this workflow, right? That is something for us in general to understand, like how is the new workflow when you're developing with these kind of tools. Like how much do you do manually, how much do you delegate? So it's it's a different way to think. So it can be a topic for another session where we discuss what is our workflow nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. So we should definitely talk about the workflow we use, but I think next time we will focus on context and the tools, and that will give us opportunity to tell a little bit more about what we are building.
Yeah, and so I think you're to maybe complete this this first session. I think one thing that is definitely worth mentioning is like as we enter 2026 in January, there was a tool that came out and kind of let's say people are saying broke the internet, right? OpenClaw, which was basically a agent that someone developed. I mean, you can look into that, but I think the main thing that got people's attention is that for the first time they saw something where the AI agent or the AI could reach out to you, be proactive, right? So you could let it run in the background. So as an example for our use case, let's imagine you say, hey agent, keep watching my logs, and if you see an error, do a research on what could be the thing and send me a message already with the investigation of what could be the cause of this incident, right?
I give you a better one.
Go ahead.
So like you get AWS health notifications, and if you ever got AWS health notifications, you know how horrific they are to read. They tell you like, Lambda with an execution environment, node 20 is out of life, and you might have a Lambda somewhere out there running it.
True.
Boy.
Go search in a multi-account environment.
You have the 50 account, and now you need to go and check it. I mean, that's like the ideal application of the agentic AI, where you get the health notification and then you search for what you have, and you present a human with a much better explanation of like, look, this is coming up. Those resources are affected. This is what you need to do. Do you want me to do that? That's like would be ideal. I mean, like us as a DevOps engineers, for us, this is toil, right? Like all those deprecations, this is not a value add. It's toil that we just need to do in order to keep system up to date, just because we are running on the cloud, and cloud deprecates things. It's normal. But this is where, in the current state of AI, the AI agents are useful. Like you would not probably let agent to run all of the infrastructure because I don't think we are there yet. But this kind of use cases where it could enrich information or give you a better insight, that's all, like remove some toils. This is where it could be very, very useful and save us time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think this is one of the big pains when we are running infrastructure, right? Like figuring out things, especially as we have more and more resources. And that ties back to what we mentioned in the beginning of the session, that based on scenarios like this that Andre mentioned, then we are like, well, why don't we actually then build something that does this and more, right? Like, but that solves that problem. So that's exactly what we started doing. And like we mentioned before, we ourselves are using it on a daily basis. We have customers using it, and start to learn also the trade-off of different things on the architectural side of building such a tool, right? And throughout the next sessions, we're going to talk about different things like context, like how do we handle RAG, like all of these kind of things that we are learning as we build something that's actually out there in the world, trying to solve real problems like this, right? Save time, take action when needed. So yeah, I think.
So that was enough for today. If you listen till the end, thank you very much. Stay tuned. We're gonna do this weekly, and next time we're gonna be talking more about the tools and the context. Before we can go, we need to cover the bases and the foundations before we can dive into more advanced stuff. Thank you for tuning in.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.